Hey everyone. Before we begin, I have one small request. If emotional love stories are your thing, stories that evoke feelings, thoughts, and a genuine sense of connection, please subscribe. It's the best way to support this channel and ensure you never miss a story. Imani Brooks's phone vibrated against her clipboard for the third time in 2 minutes. She ignored it, watching from the chapel's side entrance as 500 guests settled into their seats, their designer clothes rustling like autumn leaves. The wedding coordinator was frantically adjusting flower arrangements that already looked perfect, and somewhere in the back room, Dominic Hayes was probably adjusting his tie for the 100th time. Imani had seen him do it during board meetings when he was nervous, though he'd never admit it. Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked. Dominic's best man. Get back here, now. Imani's stomach dropped. She'd been Dominic Hayes' secretary for 3 years, and she knew that tone. Something was catastrophically wrong. She slipped through the crowd, her sensible heels clicking against marble floors as she navigated toward the groom's suite. The door was half open, and she could hear Ray's voices inside. What do you mean she's gone? Dominic's voice was tight, controlled. That was worse than yelling. Imani pushed the door open. Dominic stood in the center of the room in his custom tuxedo, holding a piece of cream-colored stationery. His best man, Trevor, paced near the window. Both men turned when she entered. Miss Brooks. Dominic's jaw was clenched. It seems we have a situation. Let me see. Imani held out her hand. After 3 years, she'd earned the right to skip the pleasantries during crises. Dominic handed her the note. The handwriting was elegant, feminine, and devastating. Dominic, I can't do this. You'll never love me the way you love your empire. I need someone who sees me, not a strategic partnership. I'm sorry. I hope someday you find someone who can reach you. Vanessa, when did she leave? Imani's mind was already running through options, contingencies, damage control scenarios. Sometime in the last hour, Trevor said, her maid of honor found the note on her dressing table. She's not answering her phone. Her parents don't know where she is. Imani looked at her watch. The ceremony was supposed to start in 12 minutes. 500 guests. 50 members of the press outside. Hayes Industries stock would open Monday morning. And if news broke that the CEO had been abandoned at the altar, the board would have a field day. Dominic had spent the last 6 months fighting off a hostile takeover attempt. This kind of public humiliation would give his rivals exactly the ammunition they needed. We need to tell the guests something, Trevor said. Medical emergency? Family crisis. That won't work, Imani said, her analytical mind clicking through possibilities. Too many people know Vanessa. Someone will verify it's a lie within hours. The truth will come out, and then it's not just a broken engagement. It's a cover-up. Dominic was silent, staring out the window at the perfectly manicured garden where he was supposed to be married in 11 minutes. Imani had never seen him look so defeated. He was always the one with the plan, the strategy, the answer. Watching him stand there, lost, did something strange to her chest. What if the wedding went forward? The words came out her mouth before she'd fully thought them through. Both men turned to stare at her. Imani, there's no bride. Trevor said slowly, like she'd lost her mind. There could be. Her heart was pounding now, but her voice stayed steady. This was insane. This was the most professionally inappropriate thing she'd ever suggested. But the numbers didn't lie. Dominic would lose everything, his company, his reputation, his grandmother's good health. The woman was 83 with a heart condition, currently sitting in the front row with tears of joy in her eyes. What are you suggesting? Dominic's eyes locked on hers, and for once, she couldn't read his expression. I'm suggesting a business arrangement. We go through with the ceremony. I'll stand in. We maintain appearances for 4 weeks, long enough to stabilize the stock price and get past the Henderson merger. Then we file for a quiet annulment. No one needs to know it was anything other than what it appears to be. You want to marry me? Dominic's tone was flat, unreadable. I want to solve a problem. That's what you pay me for. Imani kept her voice clinical, professional. You need a bride for the next 30 minutes and a wife for the next 30 days. I need... She paused. This was the part that made her feel mercenary, but honesty had always been their policy. I need money for business school. My acceptance letter came last week. Northwestern's MBA program. I was planning to give you my notice next month anyway. Dominic's expression shifted. You were leaving? Yes. So this works perfectly. You get your stability. I get my exit package. We both walk away with what we need. No feelings, no complications. Pure transaction. Trevor was looking between them like they'd both lost their minds. This is crazy. People don't just swap out brides at the last minute. People also don't walk away from billion-dollar companies without a fight, Imani said. Mr. Hayes, you have 9 minutes to make a decision. What's it going to be? Dominic studied her face, and Imani forced herself to meet his eyes without flinching. She'd maintained professional distance for 3 years, never let herself think of him as anything other than her employer. Difficult, brilliant, impossible to read, but just a job, just a paycheck. This was just an extension of that, a business transaction. Why would you do this? Dominic asked quietly. Really? Because you taught me something in 3 years, Mr. Hayes. When you see an opportunity, you take it. When you see a solution, you execute it. You don't let emotions cloud your judgment. She extended her hand like they were closing a deal. So yes or no? Do we have an arrangement? Dominic looked at her hand, then at Trevor, then back at her face. 7 minutes until the ceremony. Outside, the string quartet began playing. Finally, Dominic reached out and shook her hand. His grip was warm, firm, and sent an unexpected jolt through her arm that she immediately suppressed. Let's get married, Miss Brooks. 5 minutes later, Imani stood in Vanessa's dressing room, staring at the wedding gown hanging on the door. It was a masterpiece of silk and lace, probably cost more than Imani's car. The wedding coordinator, a woman named Patricia, who looked like she might faint, was frantically trying to explain the situation to Vanessa's stunned bridesmaids. We need everyone out, Imani said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Now, and we need absolute silence about this. Anyone who speaks to the press will answer to Hayes Industries' legal team. Understood? The bridesmaids scattered. Patricia stayed, her hands shaking as she helped Imani out of her simple black dress and into the gown. It didn't fit right. Vanessa was taller, thinner. The bodice gaped slightly, and the hem pulled around Imani's feet. We can pin it, Patricia said, already moving with practiced efficiency. No one will notice from the audience. My hair. I'll fix it. 2 minutes. Imani's hands were trembling now. What had she done? This was insane. She was about to walk down the aisle in front of 500 people and marry her boss. Her impossible, demanding, infuriating boss who she spent 3 years trying not to notice was attractive because that way lay nothing but complications. Patricia worked magic with bobby pins and hairspray, transforming Imani's neat bun into something that almost looked bridal. There was no time for makeup adjustments. No time to think. No time to back out. Trevor appeared at the door. They're ready? Imani, are you sure? Don't, she said, cutting him off. Don't give me a chance to think about this. She grabbed the bouquet, Vanessa's bouquet, roses and peonies that smelled like expensive perfume, and followed Trevor to the chapel entrance. Through the doorway, she could see the guests, the flowers, the afternoon sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. At the altar, Dominic stood with his back to her, shoulders rigid with tension. The music changed. The wedding march began. Imani's feet moved automatically, carrying her down the aisle. Guests turned, their expressions shifting from anticipation to confusion. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She kept her eyes forward, focused on Dominic. When he turned and saw her, his expression didn't change. That was good. They were both professionals. They could do this. She reached the altar. Dominic extended his hand, and she took it. His palm was warm, steady. Hers was ice cold. The officiant, an elderly man who'd clearly been briefed by Trevor, didn't miss a beat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Imani barely heard the words. She was too focused on keeping her breathing steady, on not looking at the grandmother in the front row who was crying, on ignoring the confused murmurs from the guests. This was fine. This was just a performance. She'd given presentations to hostile board members. She could do this. Do you, Dominic Andrew Hayes, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Dominic's voice was clear, confident. His eyes met hers, and something flickered in their depths. Gratitude? Relief? She couldn't tell. And do you, Imani Solange Brooks, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? This was it. Last chance to back out. Last chance to run. I do. The ring was too big. Dominic had to slide it on carefully to keep it from falling off. They have to get it resized. That thought struck her as absurdly funny. They were planning to annul this marriage in a month, but they'd need to resize the ring. You may kiss the bride. Dominic's hand came up to her face, gentle, almost tentative. Their eyes met again, and she saw the question there. She gave the smallest nod. He leaned in, and his lips brushed hers. It was brief, professional, meant for the audience. So, why did it feel like electricity? The guests erupted in applause. Confused applause, but applause nonetheless. Dominic offered his arm, and Imani took it, letting him lead her back down the aisle. She smiled, played the part. Behind her eyes, her mind was racing. What had she just done? The reception was a blur of handshakes and forced smiles. Guests kept asking variations of the same question. What happened to Vanessa? Dominic had a prepared answer. Vanessa, and I realized we weren't right for each other. Imani and I have been close for years. When you know, close for years. It wasn't technically a lie. They'd worked together for 3 years. They were close in the sense that she knew his schedule better than he did, knew his coffee order, knew which board members to seat away from each other at dinners. But they weren't close. Not really. First dance, the DJ announced, and suddenly Imani was being led onto the dance floor. Dominic's hand settled on her waist, and she placed hers on his shoulder. The music started, some romantic ballad she didn't recognize. You're shaking, Dominic said quietly, his mouth near her ear so no one else could hear. You try getting married with 5 minutes' notice. I just did. Despite everything, Imani almost laughed. Fair point. They swayed in silence for a moment. Dominic was a better dancer than she'd expected. Then again, men like him probably took lessons for occasions exactly like this. Step on my feet one more time, he murmured. Maybe if you led properly. She shot back and felt him stiffen. Then his shoulders relaxed, and she realized he was trying not to smile. Are we really going to argue at our own wedding? Is it arguing if I'm right? This time he did smile just slightly. I forgot how stubborn you are. You pay me to be stubborn. Someone has to tell you when your ideas are terrible. And this idea, the one you suggested, Imani looked up at him, meeting his eyes. Ask me in 4 weeks. The song ended. Guests applauded. Dominic's grandmother appeared at their side, her face radiant with joy. She was a tiny woman, barely 5 feet tall, with kind eyes and hands that shook slightly when she reached for Imani. My dear, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so happy to finally meet you properly. Dominic has spoken of you so often. Imani's chest tightened with guilt. Mrs. Hayes. Call me Nana. We're family now. The old woman squeezed Imani's hand. You're different from Vanessa. That's good. He needs someone who sees him, not just his bank account. The words hit harder than they should have. Imani forced a smile. Thank you, Nana. When the grandmother moved away, Dominic leaned in. You handle that well. I feel like a fraud. You're saving my company. That's not fraud. That's business. Right. Business. That's all this was. So, why did a word feel like a lie? Enjoying the story so far? Make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the adventure. The reception finally ended at midnight. Imani's feet ached in Vanessa's too tight shoes, and her face hurt from smiling. Dominic's driver pulled up to front of the venue, and suddenly reality crashed down on her. She was going home with him, to his penthouse, because they were married. Ready? Dominic held the car door open. No. Yes. The drive was silent. Imani stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past. Beside her, Dominic scrolled through his phone, reading what she assumed were concerned messages from board members who'd heard about the bride switch. His jaw was tight, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. Stock futures are holding steady. He said finally, "That's good. Good." She didn't know what else to say. The penthouse occupied the top floor of a gleaming tower in the financial district. Imani had been here before, dropping off documents or picking up signatures when Dominic worked from home. But walking in as his wife felt different. Wrong. The space was beautiful in a sterile way. All glass and steel and modern art that probably cost more than her annual salary. It looked like a showroom, not a home. "Guest room is down the hall," Dominic said, loosening his tie. "Second door on the left. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. I'll have someone bring your things from your apartment tomorrow." "Thank you." Imani hovered near the entrance, still in the wedding dress. Dominic turned to look at her, and for a moment, something flickered in his expression. "Imani, what you did today was a business transaction. You don't need to thank me." Still, he ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect style. "I won't forget it." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning she didn't want to examine. Imani nodded and escaped to the guest room. The next morning, she woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. She found Dominic in the kitchen, already dressed in casual clothes, jeans and a button-down shirt. She'd never seen him in jeans. "There's coffee," he said without looking up from his laptop. "And we need to establish some ground rules." "Right. Business." Imani poured herself a cup and sat across from him at the kitchen island. "I'm listening." "We maintain separate bedrooms. We keep interactions minimal when we're here. In public, we act like a married couple. Affectionate, but not excessive. We attend necessary social functions together. After 30 days, we file for annulment citing irreconcilable differences. And the financial arrangement? $200,000. Deposited in your account the day the annulment is finalized." Imani's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "That's too much. That's what you're worth. You saved my company yesterday. Northwestern's tuition plus living expenses for 2 years." He'd looked it up. He'd calculated exactly what she'd need. Something warm and unwelcome bloomed in her chest. Dominic. Non-negotiable, Miss Brooks. Miss Brooks. Even now, even after everything, he still called her that. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like solid ground. "Fine, but I'm still working. I don't quit until the annulment." "Agreed." They shook hands across the kitchen island, sealing the deal. Dominic's hand lingered in hers a moment longer than necessary, and Imani pulled away first, disturbed by how right it felt. The first week was awkward. They moved around each other like strangers, maintaining careful distance. Imani went to work, fielded questions from curious co-workers, and came home to find Dominic already locked in his home office. They ate separately, spoke minimally, existed in parallel lives under the same roof. But proximity has a way of breaking down walls. On Thursday night, Imani couldn't sleep. She padded to the kitchen at 2 a.m, planning to make tea, and found Dominic already there. He sat at the island in a t-shirt and sweatpants, more casual than she'd ever seen him, with spreadsheets spread across his laptop screen. "You should be sleeping," she said. "So should you." "Touché." She filled the kettle, hyper-aware of his presence behind her. "Want some tea?" "I don't drink tea." "You should. It's better for you than the 6 cups of coffee you have every day." 6.5. You always forget the espresso at 3. Despite herself, Imani smiled. She'd been making that espresso for 3 years. "How could I forget?" The kettle boiled. She made 2 cups of chamomile tea and slid one across to him. He eyed it suspiciously. "Just try it. If you hate it, I'll never suggest it again." Dominic took a cautious sip, made a face, then took another sip. "It's not terrible." High praise from Dominic Hayes. They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Dominic said, "Why Northwestern? Why business school?" The question surprised her. in 3 years. He'd never asked about her plans, her dreams. I want to build something of my own. I grew up watching my mother clean other people's houses. She worked 3 jobs to put me through college. I promised her I'd do something that mattered. Being a secretary doesn't matter? Being your secretary taught me everything I know about running a company. But I don't want to be behind the desk. I want to be at the table making decisions. Dominic studied her over his tea. You'd be good at it. You're smarter than half my board members. Only half. I'm being generous to them. Imani laughed, genuine and surprised. When was the last time they joked like this? Had they ever? What about you? She asked. Why the company? Why work yourself to death over Hayes Industries? Dominic's expression shuddered. It's what I have. That's not an answer. It's the only answer. He stood, picking up his tea. I should try to sleep. Breakfast meeting at 7. Dominic, wait. The words came out before she could stop them. You can talk to me. I know this arrangement is temporary, but we don't have to be strangers. He paused at the kitchen entrance, his back to her. My father built Hayes Industries from nothing. Then he died in a car accident when I was 23, and everyone expected me to fail. They wanted me to sell, to let someone more experienced take over. I spent 10 years proving them wrong. The company is all I have because I gave up everything else to keep it. The vulnerability in his voice made Imani's throat tight. That sounds lonely. It is. He turned to look at her, and in the dim kitchen light, he looked younger, tired, human. Thank you for the tea, Imani. He left, and Imani sat alone in the kitchen, staring at his half-empty cup. Something had shifted between them in that conversation. Some invisible wall had cracked. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister. How's married life? Imani didn't know how to answer. Instead, she cleaned up the teacups and went back to bed, but sleep didn't come for a long time. The next morning, she woke to find a note on the kitchen counter in Dominic's neat handwriting. Meeting ran late. There's breakfast in the fridge. Your tea is better than coffee. Don't tell anyone I admitted that. D. Imani found herself smiling at the note like an idiot. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Mrs. Hayes? A woman's voice, cold and elegant. This is Imani Brooks. It's Vanessa. I need to speak with Dominic. It's important. Imani's hand tightened around her phone. Vanessa, I know this is awkward, but I really need to talk to him. Can you have him call me? You walked out on him at the altar. You don't get to make demands. I made a mistake. Vanessa's voice cracked. I panicked. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. Dominic and I, we make sense. We're from the same world. Whatever you two have, it happened so fast. It can't be real. The words stung more than they should have. I'm not giving him your message. Imani, please. I love him. You have a strange way of showing it. Imani ended the call, her heart pounding. She should tell Dominic. That was a professional thing to do. But instead, she deleted the call from her history and tried to focus on work. She failed spectacularly, spending the morning distracted, snapping at junior associates who didn't deserve it. At lunch, Dominic appeared at her desk, her old desk, though she hadn't quite figured out where she fit in the company hierarchy now. Was she still his secretary? His wife? Both? Neither? Have lunch with me, he said. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't quite a command either. They went to a small Italian place 3 blocks from the office, a booth in the back, away from curious eyes. Dominic ordered for both of them without asking. Carbonara for her, because he'd seen her order it a dozen times at working lunches. That he remembered made her chest feel tight. You've been distracted today, he said once the waiter left. I'm fine. Imani. He leaned forward. We've worked together for 3 years. I know when something's wrong. She should tell him about Vanessa, but the word stuck in her throat. It's nothing, just adjusting to everything. Dominic didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. Nana wants us to come to dinner on Sunday. Her birthday. Of course. The guilt was back, heavy and suffocating. Dominic, lying to her. I know. His jaw tightened. But if we tell her the truth now, the shock could trigger another heart episode. Her doctor said she needs to avoid stress. So they were trapped by kindness, by the desire not to hurt a sweet old woman who just wanted her grandson to be happy. Their food arrived. They ate in silence for a few minutes, and then Dominic said, "Thank you for doing this. I know I haven't said enough. You don't need to keep thanking me." "Yes, I do." He met her eyes. "You gave up your privacy, your freedom, your peace of mind, for a boss who probably doesn't deserve it." "You're not that bad," Imani said, and was surprised to find she meant it. "Demanding, yes, impossible sometimes, but not bad. Demanding and impossible. That's quite the endorsement. Would you prefer I lie?" His lips quirked. "No, I've always appreciated your honesty." The moment felt fragile, important. Imani looked away first, suddenly unable to hold his gaze. That night, Vanessa called Dominic directly. Imani knew because she heard his phone ring at 11, heard his voice through the wall between their rooms. Low, careful. The call lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, Imani lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hating the jealousy churning in her stomach. The next morning, Dominic was quiet at breakfast. Finally, he said, "Vanessa called last night." "I know." At his surprised look, she added, "The walls aren't that thick. She wants to meet, to talk." "Are you going to?" "I don't know. Should I?" The question felt like a test. Imani chose her words carefully. "That depends. Do you want to?" She was my plan, my logical choice, someone who understood the world I live in. He stared into his coffee. "But she left, and you stayed." "I stayed for money." "Did you?" His eyes found hers, an intensity that made her breath catch. Before she could answer, her phone rang. Dominic's head of security, Richard, who Imani had always found vaguely intimidating. "Miss Brooks, we have a situation. Is Mr. Hayes with you?" "Yes." "What's wrong?" "Put me on speaker." Imani did. Richard's voice filled the kitchen, grave and urgent. "Sir, Marcus Sterling just filed a formal complaint with the SEC. He's alleging that your marriage is fraudulent, designed to manipulate stock prices. He's threatening to go public unless you step down as CEO." Dominic's expression went cold and hard. "On what evidence?" "He has an investigator's report. No prior relationship between you and Miss Brooks. No dating history. Timing of the marriage immediately after the Henderson merger announcement. He's calling it stock manipulation." Imani's stomach dropped. "How'd he find out?" "Sterling's had investigators on you for months. They've been building a case." Dominic stood, pacing to the window. "How long do we have?" "He's giving you 48 hours to resign. After that, he goes to the press." "Thank you, Richard. Keep monitoring the situation." Dominic ended the call and turned to Imani. "This is my fault. I should have anticipated this." "We both should have." Imani's mind was racing. "If we come clean now, you lose the company. If we lie, Sterling exposes us anyway, and you lose the company plus face fraud charges. There's a third option, which is..." Dominic crossed back to her, and something in his expression made her pulse quicken. "We make it real." "What?" "Not legally. We're already married. But we make people believe it. We show them a relationship so genuine that Sterling's claims look like conspiracy theories from a business rival. How do we do that? We barely know each other outside of work. Then we learn." Dominic pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "What's your favorite food?" "What?" "Your favorite food. I know you like carbonara for lunch, but what's your favorite?" "This is ridiculous." "Imani, please." The please did it. She sighed. "My mother's jerk chicken. She makes it every Sunday after church. It's too spicy for most people, but I love it." "What else?" "Favorite movie? The Devil Wears Prada favorite color is burgundy. I hate roller coasters, but love horror movies. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was 12, but changed my mind after an internship at a firm and realizing I hated confrontation." The words tumbled out, and with them came a strange relief. "Your turn." Dominic leaned back, and for the first time since she'd known him, He looked uncertain. I don't know if I have a favorite food. I eat whatever's sufficient. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. My apartment is cold because I'm never home long enough to make it warm. I haven't taken a vacation in 6 years. I don't have hobbies. He paused. Until last week, I didn't realize how empty my life was. And now I come home and there's someone here. You leave books on the coffee table. You cook meals that actually taste like something. You argue about spreadsheet formatting. His voice dropped. You make this place feel less like a tomb. Imani's throat was tight. Dominic, I'm going to meet with Vanessa this afternoon. Not because I want her back, but because I need to close that door properly. And then I'm coming home, and we're going to figure out how to make this work. Not as a business arrangement, as a partnership. What are you saying? I'm saying somewhere between you burning my toast and arguing with me about proper tea temperature, I stopped pretending. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. I see you, Imani, and I'm terrified because I don't know how to do this, but I want to try. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. I see you, too. Dominic met Vanessa at an upscale cafe downtown. Imani waited at the office, tried to work, but mostly staring at the clock. When he returned 2 hours later, his expression was unreadable. Well, she asked. I told her it was over, that what we had was never real. He sat on the edge of her desk. She asked if you and I were real. I said yes. Are we? I'd like to be. His hand found hers. If you're willing. Before Imani could answer, Richard burst through the door. Sterling's moving up his timeline. Press conference in 1 hour. He's going public with the fraud allegations. Dominic's hand tightened on hers. Then we go public too. 20 minutes later, they stood in the Hayes Industries lobby, facing a crowd of reporters. Cameras flashed. Microphones jutted forward. Imani's hand was shaking, but Dominic's steady presence beside her kept her grounded. Thank you for coming, Dominic began, his voice calm and authoritative. There have been questions about my marriage to Imani Brooks. Marcus Sterling has made serious allegations, so I'm here to tell you the truth. The room went silent. Imani could see Sterling in the back, arms crossed, a smug expression on his face. My wedding day didn't go as planned. Vanessa left, and Imani, my brilliant, courageous secretary, offered to save me from public humiliation. We got married as a business arrangement. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sterling's smile widened. Dominic continued. But something neither of us anticipated happened. We fell in love. Imani's heart stopped. I spent 3 years working beside Imani without truly seeing her. She was efficient, professional, invaluable. But I never looked beyond that. I never saw the woman who works 3 times harder than anyone else because she promised her mother she'd make something of herself, who reads mystery novels at 2 a.m. because she can't sleep, who makes terrible tea but keeps trying because she thinks I need to relax more. His voice softened. I never saw her until I had no choice but to look. He turned to face her, and the cameras disappeared. The reporters vanished. It was just them. Imani, you saved me that day at the altar, but you've been saving me ever since. From a life that was all work and no meaning. From becoming the kind of man who builds empires but dies alone. You make me want to leave the office. You make me want to be someone worth coming home to. Tears burned in Imani's eyes. Dominic, I'm not finished. Yes, our marriage started as a convenience, but it became the most real thing in my life. And I don't want an annulment. I want a second chance. I want to marry you again, properly this time, not as a business deal, but as a choice. If you'll have me. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. But Imani only heard one thing, the pounding of her own heart. Yes, she said, and the word came out steady and sure. Yes, I'll marry you again. Dominic pulled her close and kissed her, and this time it wasn't for show. This time it was real, messy and perfect, and everything she hadn't known she wanted. The cameras flashed, the reporters shouted, but none of it mattered. When they finally pulled apart, Sterling had already left. His fraud claims looked exactly like what they were Desperate attacks from a business rival. The stock price jumped 3 points by market close. 1 week later, Imani stood in Nana's garden, wearing a simple ivory dress she'd chosen herself. No elaborate ceremony this time. Just 50 people who actually mattered. Her mother sat in the front row, crying happy tears. Nana sat beside her, beaming. Dominic waited at a simple arch covered in burgundy roses. When he saw her walking toward him, his expression transformed into something so tender it made her chest ache. "We're really doing this," she said when she reached him. "No running away this time. No business arrangements. Just us." The officiant, a friend of Nana's, smiled at them. "I understand you two have written your own vows." Dominic took both her hands. "Imani, I spent 3 years not seeing you. I won't waste another day. You taught me that success without connection is just emptiness. You make me want to burn toast with you every morning. You challenge me, frustrate me, and make me better. I promise to see you, to choose you, every single day for the rest of my life." Imani's voice shook but held. "Dominic, a month ago you were just my impossible boss. Then you became my fake husband. Then my friend. Now you're my partner in every sense of the word. You saw me when I thought I was invisible. You chose me over your empire. I promise to keep solving your problems. Started with making sure you actually eat lunch. I promise to argue with you about spreadsheets. And I promise to love you, not despite your flaws, but because of them, because they make you human, because they make you mine." The rings fit perfectly this time. The kiss was long and sweet and earned. Their guests cheered, and this time, every ounce of applause was genuine. 3 months later, Imani sat at the kitchen island, her Northwestern acceptance letter in hand. Dominic appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Still planning to go?" he asked. "Part-time. I'm also the new COO of Hayes Industries. Someone has to keep you from working yourself to death. Best decision I ever made, hiring you. Second best. First was marrying me. That was your idea. And look how well it turned out." She turned in his arms. "Any regrets?" "Only that I didn't see you sooner." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for saving me, Imani. Thank you for letting me." Outside, the city glittered in the evening light. Inside, 2 people who'd started as strangers became partners, and finally found love in the space between business and belonging, held each other close. Sometimes the best love stories don't start with love at first sight. They start with a desperate solution, a crazy plan, and 2 people brave enough to see what happens when convenience becomes choice, when obligation becomes devotion, when a business arrangement becomes the most real thing in their lives. Dominic and Imani had found something rare, a partnership built on equal parts respect, challenge, and genuine affection. And it all started the day she saved him at the altar, never expecting that in doing so, she'd save herself too. If you felt anything while listening to this story, if it made your heart race, made you smile, or reminded you that real love still exists, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button to support the channel. Subscribe so you never miss a new romance story. And turn on notifications to stay close to every heartbeat, every twist, every unforgettable love. And I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Your city, your country, your corner of the world. Your support helps this channel grow, and your comments inspire the next love story.